Have you ever noticed something strange that happens when you start to grow? Not surface level growth, not a new routine or a new habit, but a real shift. The kind that happens deep in your mind. The kind of shift that makes you question everything. What you've been told, who you've been pretending to be, what you truly believe. Suddenly, people start to act different around you. They don't always say it, but they feel it, and you feel it too. They'll throw in a few passive-aggressive jokes, offer advice you didn't ask for disguised as concern, or maybe they'll just go quiet. A strange kind of silence when you speak about things that matter. It's subtle, but you notice it, and it leaves you wondering, why does it seem like people pull away the moment you begin to get clearer, stronger, more aware? Here's the truth. One most won't admit out loud. Your mental evolution makes others uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your growth forces them to confront everything they've avoided. Your clarity becomes a mirror. And not everyone likes what they see reflected back. When you begin to think differently, act differently, even question things you once accepted without hesitation, it shakes the ground beneath the people who are still standing in place. You're not just changing, you're disrupting the equilibrium. And deep down, they know it. That's why the jokes sting. That's why the silence feels heavy. That's why you start to feel alone. Nietzsche understood this more deeply than almost anyone in history. He knew that true growth is not accepted, it is resisted. He knew that when you choose to become mentally strong, truly strong, you will inevitably make others feel weak in comparison, and they will react. He wrote not for the many, but for the few. For the rare individuals who are willing to walk away from the comfort of the crowd, who are willing to stop asking, "What should I believe?" and instead begin asking, "What do I believe?" This is the beginning of something powerful and something terrifying. Because when you build a mind of your own, one that is sharp, disciplined, independent, you become a threat. Not through violence, not through arrogance, but through clarity. Clarity is disruptive. It reveals, it exposes, and it doesn't need to shout to be felt. That's why Nietzsche said, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes?" It's not a metaphor. It's a process. To build a mind that cannot be broken, you must be willing to let the old one burn. And when you do, don't be surprised when people pull away. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the part of themselves they are no longer able to ignore. But here's the good news. This discomfort you're feeling, it's not a mistake. It's a signal, a sign that you've stepped off the well-worn path and onto something much rarer, a path of power, a path of honesty, a path of total responsibility. This is not a path for everyone. It will cost you relationships, it will cost you approval, it will cost you your comfort. But in return, it gives you something more precious than all of that, yourself. A mind of your own. A voice of your own. A truth that can't be shaken by other people's noise. If that's the kind of strength you're ready for, then this is your path, and it begins here. Let's talk about something no one likes to face. Chaos. Not the chaos of the world outside. The chaos within you. The mess of thoughts, fears, doubts, and raw emotions that swirl beneath the surface. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid that chaos. We cover it up with routines, with distractions, with endless noise. We keep busy. We stay entertained. We chase stability as if it will save us. But here's the harsh truth. That chaos you fear? That's exactly where your strength is forged. Nietzsche saw this with brutal clarity. He said, you need to have chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star. What does that mean? It means real power, real transformation, never comes from playing it safe. It never comes from staying comfortable. It comes from walking straight into the fire of your own discomfort, from facing what you've been running from sitting with the questions that don't have easy answers. Think about the moments in your life when you grew the most. Were they the peaceful times? Or were they the moments when everything fell apart? The heartbreaks, the failures, the betrayals, the nights when you felt completely lost? Those moments, painful as they are, were not punishments. They were invitations. Invitations to break down what was weak so that something stronger could be built in its place. Nietzsche didn't romanticize suffering. He didn't say, go looking for pain. But he did recognize something most people miss, that avoiding pain keeps you weak. It keeps you small. It keeps you dependent on a fragile illusion of control. When you finally stop running, when you turn around and face your own chaos, that's when the real transformation begins. Because here's what happens. You realize the monster you've been running from, it's not as powerful as you thought. In fact, it's part of you. And when you integrate it, when you own it, you stop being afraid of it. That's where true strength is born. Not in eliminating chaos, but in learning to hold it, to stand in the middle of the storm and stay grounded. Most people are terrified of this idea. They want life to be neat, predictable, and easy. But life isn't designed that way. And the more you resist its chaos, the more it controls you. Nietzsche challenges us to flip the script, to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can this forge within me? He believed that suffering, when faced with courage, turns into fuel. Fuel for clarity, fuel for resilience, fuel for greatness. But here's the catch. To use that fuel, you have to let go of the idea that life owes you comfort. You have to abandon the fantasy that one day you'll reach a place where everything is easy. That day doesn't exist, and chasing it will only drain your strength. Instead, you build strength by stepping into the truth. Life is hard. Growth is painful. And your mind? It's shaped by how willing you are to engage with that reality. So let me ask you, where have you been running from chaos? What pain have you been avoiding? And what might happen if instead of hiding, you decided to meet it head on? That's where your edge is. That's where your power is waiting. And that's the next step on this path. Let's take things deeper now, because once you face the chaos inside you, once you've stopped running and begun to stand still in your own storm, something huge becomes clear. There's no one coming to save you. It's a sobering realization. For a long time, maybe your whole life, you've been told, directly or indirectly, that someone or something outside of you holds the answers. Your parents, your teachers, your culture, your religion. The belief that there's some kind of plan, some safety net, something watching over you, guiding you, ready to catch you if you fall. Nietzsche shattered that illusion with one of his most famous and most misunderstood ideas. God is dead. Now, don't mistake this for a simple attack on religion. Nietzsche wasn't just talking about a deity. He was talking about the entire system of comforting illusions we cling to. The belief that meaning is handed to us from above, that someone else is in charge, that we can outsource responsibility for our lives. And when he said, God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He was warning us. Now that the illusion is gone, the full weight of existence is on your shoulders. At first, that feels terrifying. No more ready-made answers. No more guarantees. No more destiny to fall back on. You are alone. Utterly alone in a universe that doesn't owe you anything. But here's where Nietzsche's brilliance shines through. Because once the shock wears off, something incredible is left behind. Pure radical freedom. Without someone else dictating your path, you get to decide what your life means. Without external validation, you get to define your worth. Without a script written by others, you become the author of your own story. This is the true beginning of strength, not strength as other people define it, not the shallow strength of appearances or empty confidence, but a core, internal strength that no one can touch because it's built by you and for you. But here's what most people miss. With freedom comes responsibility, and with responsibility comes weight. It's heavy, because now there's no one left to blame. No one to point fingers at when life is hard. No safety net to fall back on when you fail. It's all on you. Most people can't handle that. They panic, they retreat, they run back to the comfort of rules and authorities and systems that tell them what to do. But if you are brave enough to stay in that space, if you're strong enough to take full ownership, you unlock a kind of power that is almost terrifying in its purity. Nietzsche called this the will to power. It's not about dominating others. It's not about control or conquest in the typical sense. It's about mastering yourself. It's about using every ounce of strength within you to rise again and again, no matter how many times life knocks you down. It's about becoming your own foundation, so solid that nothing external can shake you. And that is when you begin to frighten people. Not because you're loud, not because you force yourself on others, but because your very existence challenges their excuses. Your presence is proof that it's possible to live without crutches. And that makes people uneasy. When you stop blaming, when you stop explaining, when you stop needing permission, you step into a level of sovereignty that most people can't comprehend. And the deeper you go into this process, the clearer it becomes. Freedom isn't a gift. It's a responsibility. And strength isn't about what you say, it's about what you carry. So here's the question I want to leave you with for now. Are you willing to bear that weight? Are you ready to stop waiting for someone to save you and instead become your own savior? Because that is the foundation of a mind so strong, it terrifies. By now, you understand. Building an unshakable mind is not just about facing pain, nor is it only about taking responsibility. It's about becoming something entirely new. And that's where Nietzsche's boldest idea comes in. The Uber Mensch, the overman, the one who transcends. It's easy to misinterpret this. We hear Uber Mensch and think of a hero, a conqueror, a superhero figure. But Nietzsche's vision was far deeper and far more demanding. The Uber Mensch isn't someone with superpowers. He's not someone above others in status or wealth. He's not even someone who wins by traditional measures. The Uber Mensch is the human being who overcomes himself. The one who breaks free from every chain of herd morality, every false comfort, every inherited belief, and becomes the creator of his own world. Imagine that for a second. A mind so independent, so self-directed, that it no longer needs validation from anyone or anything. A spirit so strong that it creates its own values, even if those values clash with everything society says is good or right. This is what terrifies people, because the Übermensch represents pure autonomy. He doesn't seek approval, he doesn't ask for permission, he doesn't play by rules he didn't choose. And when you step into even a fraction of this mindset, people feel it. Your energy changes. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. And in that silence, in that stillness, you become a mirror. A mirror that forces others to confront what they lack. Your presence alone challenges their excuses, their complacency, their need to fit in. Nietzsche taught that the Uber Mensch is not born from comfort. He is forged in fire, in struggle, in isolation. He knew that to become unbreakable, you have to endure the breaking. You have to die to your old self, over and over, until what's left is something entirely yours. And that is why so few choose this path. Because it's brutal, it's lonely. It requires you to give up everything that once made you feel safe. You have to face the fear of being misunderstood, the sting of rejection, the ache of solitude. You have to resist the pull of going back to your old ways, of settling, of compromising, of becoming small just to be liked. But here's the secret Nietzsche uncovered. Every time you refuse to shrink, you grow. Every time you hold your ground, even when it hurts, you strengthen your core. Every time you walk alone, you sharpen your vision. And slowly, quietly, something incredible happens. You become whole. You become sovereign. You become unbreakable. That's what the Uber Mensch represents. Not perfection, not invincibility, but wholeness, integration, the complete and unapologetic ownership of who you are. And when you reach that level, when your mind is no longer ruled by fear, guilt, or the need to fit in, you become a force that others cannot manipulate. You terrify not because you threaten, but because you remind people of their own potential and their own failure to live up to it. So let me ask you, are you ready to stop living as a copy of what the world wants you to be? Are you ready to begin the long, lonely, liberating process of becoming yourself? That is the path of the Uber Mensch. And it's waiting for you. We've talked about power. We've talked about the overman. But now comes the part of the journey that almost no one warns you about. The part that breaks most people before they ever reach their true strength. Solitude. Nietzsche understood something most of us don't want to face. The stronger your mind becomes, the lonelier your path will be. Not because you want to be alone, but because your transformation creates distance. Distance from those who are still living on autopilot. Distance from friends and family who don't understand your evolution. Distance from the comforting noise of the crowd. And that distance, it hurts. Let's be real. We are social creatures. We crave connection, belonging, understanding. And when you begin to outgrow old patterns, old conversations, old circles, you feel it like a tear in the fabric of your life. People start to look at you differently. They might say you've changed. They might accuse you of being arrogant, cold, or too serious. They might withdraw, leaving you in silence where there used to be closeness. And your first instinct? It will be to go back, to shrink, to apologize for your growth, to soften yourself so you can fit back into their comfort zones. But here's Nietzsche's hard truth. If you do that, if you shrink to be accepted, you kill the very strength you are trying to build. Because true mental power is not just about thinking differently. It's about holding that difference, even when it isolates you. Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." And he was right. The tribe, whether it's your family, your culture, your peer group, wants you to stay the same. Not because they hate you, but because your growth threatens their stability. Your independence makes them question their own dependence. Your clarity makes their confusion feel exposed. Your strength forces them to see where they are still weak. So they pressure you to come back. sometimes with anger, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with love. And it's so tempting to give in, to trade your authenticity for belonging, to wear the mask again, just so you don't have to feel so alone. But Nietzsche's message is clear. If you can't stand to be alone, you are not ready for freedom. Freedom and solitude, they are twins. You cannot have one without the other, because it is in solitude that your true self is forged. It is in solitude that you confront your deepest fears, your darkest thoughts, your rawest truths. There are no distractions out there, no noise to drown out your doubts, just you and the reality of who you are. And that is where your real strength is born. Think about it. Every great leap in your personal growth, every breakthrough, has likely happened in moments of inner confrontation, moments when you sat with your discomfort instead of running from it, moments when you wrestled with your shadow instead of pretending it wasn't there. That's the crucible of solitude. It's harsh, it's unforgiving, but it's where your unshakable mind is forged. And here's the paradox. The more you embrace solitude, the less lonely you feel. Because you begin to realize that your strength comes from within, not from others' approval. You start to feel whole, without needing anyone to fill the gaps. You start to enjoy your own company, because you've made peace with your own mind. Nietzsche called this possessing yourself, and he said it's the highest achievement any human can attain. Because when you truly possess yourself, no one can possess you. No one can control you. No one can shake your core. So let me ask you, can you stand the silence? Can you hold your ground when the world wants you to bend? Can you walk alone, trusting that every step is shaping you into something rare and powerful? If you can, then you are on your way to becoming unbreakable. Now, let's get even more real. You've stepped into solitude. You've started to own your strength. But what happens next is something Nietzsche understood all too well. And it's what catches most people off guard. The attack of collective mediocrity. See, most of us grow up believing that tyranny comes from the top down, from dictators, leaders, governments. But Nietzsche saw something much sneakier, much more dangerous. Tyranny comes from the sides. It comes from the crowd. It comes from the people around you, friends, family, co-workers, who, without even realizing it, police your thoughts and actions. Not with violence, not with open threats, but with subtle pressure. Pressure to stay small, pressure to stay agreeable, pressure to fit in. Nietzsche called this the slave morality, a moral code created not by the strong, but by the weak, designed to keep everyone weak so no one has to feel exposed by someone else's strength. Here's how it works. When you start breaking out of the mold, when you become more confident, more independent, more clear, the people around you feel it. Even if you're not trying to show off, even if you're just quietly growing, they sense the difference. And it makes them uncomfortable. Why? Because your growth acts like a mirror. It reflects back to them where they're not growing, where they're still stuck, where they're still afraid. And most people, they don't want to see that. So instead of rising up to meet you, they try to pull you back down. They'll tell you you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. They'll say you're too ambitious, too intense, too independent. They might laugh at your new ideas. They might question your motives. They might even distance themselves, leaving you wondering what you did wrong. But here's the secret. You didn't do anything wrong. You did something rare. You stepped out of the herd. And the herd? It doesn't like that. Because the herd depends on sameness, on conformity, on keeping everyone at the same level so no one has to feel the discomfort of growth. Nietzsche warned us, the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. Think about that for a second. We are taught almost from birth to value fitting in over standing out, to value harmony over truth, to value comfort over courage. And when you defy that, when you choose truth, courage, authenticity, you disrupt the whole system. That's why you might feel resistance from people who once supported you. That's why old friendships might crumble. That's why your success might trigger jealousy, or your independence might invite criticism. It's not because you're doing something bad. It's because you're shining a light on mediocrity, and mediocrity hates that. But here's where many people stumble. They mistake this resistance as a sign to stop, to shrink back down, to soften their edges so they don't upset anyone. And when they do that, they betray themselves. Nietzsche's challenge is simple but brutal. Do not betray yourself. Even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when people accuse you of being difficult, arrogant, or cold, because the truth is, most people don't want you to change, not because they don't love you, but because your change demands that they change too. And that's uncomfortable. So what do? They try to maintain the status quo. They might not even realize they're doing it, but the pressure is real. And that's why Nietzsche's philosophy is so radical. He doesn't just ask you to think differently. He asks you to be willing to stand alone in your difference, to hold your strength even when it feels like the whole world wants you to let it go, to keep your clarity even when others try to cloud it with their doubts, to rise even when rising makes others uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, Nietzsche believed, the world doesn't change because of the crowd. It changes because of the rare individuals who are willing to disturb it. And if you're walking this path, if you're feeling that resistance now, know this: you are not failing. You are succeeding. You are shaking the foundations of mediocrity. And that's exactly what you came here to do. You've come this far, and by now you know this path isn't easy. Nietzsche never promised comfort. He didn't sugarcoat the truth. He didn't write for the faint of heart. He wrote for you, the person willing to stand in the fire and become something stronger. And here's the reality. To build a mind so strong that it terrifies people, you have to pay a price. What's the price? Loss. You will lose people who only loved your weaker self. You will lose opportunities that demand your submission. You will lose the illusion of belonging to a crowd that was never truly your home. You will feel the sting of isolation, the ache of being misunderstood, the weight of carrying your own truth when no one else can or will carry it with you. Nietzsche put it plainly. He who climbs upon the highest mountains laughs at all tragedies, real or imaginary. In other words, the higher you rise, the smaller the noise below becomes. But before you get to that mountain peak, you will walk through valleys of doubt, nights of loneliness, moments where it would be so much easier to just give in, conform, play small. And yet, you won't. Because something inside you is too alive to let that happen. That something is what Nietzsche called the will to power. It's the deepest part of you that refuses to be tamed. It's the fire that says, I will not shrink, I will rise. And when you honor that fire, when you keep walking even when the world pushes back, you start to gain something priceless: sovereignty. Sovereignty is full ownership of yourself, your mind, your emotions, your choices, your power. It means you are no longer at the mercy of outside approval, no longer controlled by guilt, fear, or shame, no longer chasing validation that always stays just out of reach. Instead, you become self-sufficient, self-authorizing, self-directed. You become unbreakable. And here's the most surprising part. When you reach this place, people feel it. They sense your solidity. They recognize, maybe unconsciously, that you are no longer someone they can manipulate or control, that your strength doesn't come from arrogance or bravado, but from something deeper, true mastery of yourself. And that terrifies people. Not because you're dangerous to them in a violent way, but because your existence challenges their comfort. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your independence exposes their dependency. Nietzsche understood this ripple effect perfectly, and he knew it was inevitable. But he also knew this. Once you cross that threshold, once you claim your sovereignty, you never want to go back. Why? Because nothing compares to the peace of knowing that you are your own foundation, that no matter what life throws at you, criticism, betrayal, loss, you will not crumble, you will stand. Because your strength is not borrowed, it is built, piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. And now, here's the final truth Nietzsche leaves us with. This work, this path, never really ends. It's not a destination, it's a way of life, a commitment to yourself, a refusal to settle, a promise to keep becoming, no matter what. And if you're still here, still listening, then you are one of the few who are ready to live that commitment. So let me ask you now, what's one thing you will no longer tolerate in your life? What's one way you will reclaim your power today? Drop it in the comments. Declare it. Claim it. Because as Nietzsche reminds us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege, it starts right now.